This week, we sit down with the Radare community leader, Pancake, the creator of Radare, the reverse engineering framework. If you've never heard of Radare, you may use it every day. You may not know what it is. We tried to conduct the interview in a way that you would get something out of it regardless. In the security news, the U.S. national cybersecurity strategy. In the category of dumb laws and 3D printing guns, we have a story. Iranian threat analysis. ESP32 Bus Pirate gets some pretty amazing updates. I can reset the admin password. Rick rolling yourself. Chrome 0 days. Repurposing those old Ubiquiti cloud keys. The new TLS certificate lifecycle. A Flipper 0 add-on and news on the FlipperOne. GlasWorm malware. Did I say that right? GlasWorm malware. Sorry, I had a typo. Do you care about exploits or patching? Both, one, the other? How we uncovered 9 vulnerabilities in IP KVMs and hacking your laundry card with Claude Code. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Somewhere right now, an attacker is testing the parts of your app your security tools cannot reach. The authenticated areas, the login flows, the hidden functionality behind credentials. Secure AI Navigator changes that. It automatically navigates real login flows just like an attacker would, exposing vulnerabilities and data leaks hiding behind authentication across user roles, session states, and authenticated API calls. No scripts to write, no brittle automation to maintain, just complete coverage in minutes instead of days. Because we didn't test behind login are the worst words in an incident report. Learn more at securityweekly.com/NowSecure. Zero Trust is clearly the future as threats get faster, quieter, and harder to detect. But implementing it shouldn't disrupt the business. ThreatLocker enforces default deny and execution in a way that remains enterprise-ready, scalable, and operationally clean. Unknown software is stopped cold, trusted apps stay contained, and drift is locked down across the environment. It's Zero Trust that works in real enterprises and prepares you for the threats ahead. See why CISOs are adopting it at securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker. Welcome, everyone, to the interview portion of the show today. I'm Paul Sidorian. I'm joined by Mr. Jeff Mann. Jeff, welcome.
Good to be here.
And Mr. Lee Neely.
Excited to be here. Let's learn about some reversing.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to mention RSAC conference is happening. I think it's next week, right? RSAC is next week. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on their RSAC 2026 All Access Pass. RSAC 2026 conference will take place March 23rd through the 26th in San Francisco. You can register using our discount code by visiting securityweekly.com/RSAC26. Use the code 56U5SecWeekly. Many of us will be there. And if you're not planning on attending by now, you're last minute. And my concern is you're not going to find a hotel room.
Hotels.
So, yeah. You know, many of us and many in our audience maybe have dabbled in reverse engineering binaries in the past. Maybe you're doing that for malware. Maybe you're doing it to find bugs. There's lots of different reasons why you would need to do some reverse engineering of binaries. I'm very excited to welcome Sergi Àlvarez, who we will refer to as Pancake for the remainder of this interview. Pancake is the founder of the Radare, or as we know it today, Radare2 project, which is a suite of tools for reverse engineering. Pancake, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me and inviting me. So that's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you. This segment is sponsored by NowSecure. That's where Pancake works. They do a lot of mobile security. We'll touch on some mobile app issues. Pancake and I were discussing when we met previously. Some pretty interesting stuff happening on that front. Pancake, I want to ask how you got your start in information security.
Yeah, I started pretty curious, trying to play games in old computers. So I was trying first of all, to get more memory from config.cs and getting the high mem and all these configurations that you end up needing to tweak by hand to get your games to work. And at the end, all these low-level things piqued my curiosity, and this was a way to go into disassembler, open the debugger. And then I was infected by some viruses in DOS, so I was basically learning assembly by myself and getting to modify binaries, create antiviruses for the virus that I had in my own computer just for fun.
Nice. So how'd you get the handle Pancake?
Yeah, that's a pretty old story. It all started because with some friends, I was having like a mailing list, and we're basically communicating using GPG. And we basically used food names as nicknames, and all the subjects was or types. So that was kind of like a way to confuse, filtering the conversations, and all the content was like this. And at the end, it was like a word I liked, so I would just end up picking Pancake.
Stuck. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Before we dig into some of the details around Radare, we'll talk about also your experiences in managing open source projects as well. I wanted to define some terms for our audience that maybe doesn't do a lot of reverse engineering. So Pancake, I want to hear you define these terms too, because this is very exciting. So decompiler or decompilation, disassembly, symbol table, and stripped versus not stripped. And if you get like forget which one you're on, I'll remind you. But let's start with I think Radare's strength, right, is decompilation. What is that?
So the compiling is the inverse process of compiling. So you basically have the binary and you want to recover the source code. Disassembly is one step before that. So you get the instructions from the processor that the binary contains. And you need to do a bunch of optimizations on the disassembly to find out which was the original source code or something that is similar to the original source code. This helps a lot understanding what the binary is doing, and kind of recovering the original source code is kind of impossible because there's a lot of metadata that is lost in the process, and a lot of optimizations end up removing code. But it helps a lot understanding what the program behavior is doing at the end.
Yeah. So sorry, disassembly is what Radare is strength, right? Go into source code. You sometimes branch out to different tools to do the decompilation, if you will.
Yeah. So there is a bunch of plugins because R2 architecture is pretty modular, and you have like the core, which defines different libraries that can interact with binaries. And then there is multiple disassembler libraries that can be used to disassemble instructions. But on top of that, there is plugins for a large variety of the compilers. So you can use Ghidra the compiler, you can use Reddeck the compiler, R2Deck. There is a bunch of different compilers that can work on top of R2. It's not a single one.
And Pancake, what about the symbol table in a stripped binary versus not stripped?
Yeah. So when you compile a program, it used to contain all the function names and global variables and other public information that needs to be used by other, for example, in libraries. If you need to call a function, you need to expose that symbol outside. And when you strip this binary, it means that you will be getting rid of all the public symbols. So there is one problem that if you strip a binary, but you don't set the visibility of the symbols properly, what will happen at the end is that there will be a lot of symbols that are not stripped, even if you strip the binary. And you end up having many public information, like the libraries that you're linking inside the binary, like third-party static libraries or function names, class information, stuff like that, that should be not in the strip binary, but in many times they're still like that.
Right. Yeah, it was interesting. We did some analysis of some malware, and we ended up finding the full collection of malware on the attacker's C2 server. And what we found in our honeypot, the binary was stripped. But when we got their tool set, we found ones that weren't stripped, which allows for better analysis, basically, to understand better what the binary is doing, correct?
Yeah. So one of the common techniques is to get, if you have the same binary with symbols and any other similar binary without symbols, like it's strip, you can generate signatures and then apply the signatures that you have with the non-strip binary in the strip one. So you end up recovering all these namings. That will be really helpful.
So to clarify, since this is supposed to be at the educational portion of the segment, what I'm hearing is stripping is bad in terms of recovering information. So you're trying to not strip out the public information. What's not clear is how much you can control stripping or not stripping.
I mean, stripping is good in the sense that the linker will be taking less time to load the binary, and if you load the library, it will be faster like this. And also, you are not exposing that much information. And at the end, symbols should be only useful for debugging. So if you have a crash log and you want to understand what's going on, you need this symbol table. And there is all the debug information, which is another layer of debug information. But at the end, when you're linking the final binary, you can specify which symbols you want to be public, and the linker basically have full control on that. So, but usually this is not something that developers take care of that.
So let me ask the question a different way, just to make sure we're understanding. Is the stripping happening more often in the compiling process, or is it something that's happening in the decompiling process?
It's in the compiling process. It's in the last stage of the compiling. So you basically build all the objects, link all the objects together, and at the end you strip what shouldn't be in the final binary.
Right. Okay, so stripping is good for optimization of running the code. Not everybody does it. Not everybody does it well. And we're going to learn how decompiling takes advantage of poor coding practices. Go.
Yeah.
So that's actually what I was going to ask specifically. Is it better? It sounds like it's a boondoggle for you to find somebody who has not stripped their code if you want to reverse it versus somebody who's done a good job. And I air quotes on the good job, on good, because of what you said. Let's assume they did okay stripping their code, but it's harder than to reverse engineer it. Am I following that right?
Yeah. So what you strip is just the function names. So you're not stripping or removing the source code itself. So this is not in the final binary at the end. But there is ways to recover from the instructions of the architecture that will be executed by the CPU. That you can end up trying to understand. The compilers basically take this disassembly and generate conditional branches, loops, variable names, and all that stuff. So symbolic information helps a lot to filter that. Even, for example, Go binaries, which are used to be pretty large, symbol information is very useful because you have like maybe 10 megabyte binary, but the only useful code is maybe 10 kilobyte. So there is a lot of noise in that you can filter and focus only on the portion that matters if you have the symbols.
Right. So, Pancake, you in I believe 2006 started Radare as a personal project. What was the driving motivation behind that?
Yeah, at the time I was working as a forensic analyst. So I was working in a company analyzing hard drive, recovering files, and creating timelines of events. That was exciting. The thing is that I had a crash. My hard drive stopped working, so I was losing a bunch of files, and I decided to recover these files. And as long as I was not allowed to use the company software for personal use, but I know how the software works. At the end, I was basically implementing the basic thing to find patterns in hard drives, and recover all that and dump these into separate files. And then I was basically carving for patterns from a disk and then generating files from that. And at that point, I was basically deciding that this tool can do many more things. So I was basically extending the tool for dumping RAM, disassembling instructions, parsing binaries, and doing many other stuff that what is our tool doing nowadays. But yeah, originally it was a forensic tool.
Gotcha. And then, so pretty quickly, you realized that the capabilities could be used to help reversing binaries for all different purposes, right? Like we said, maybe you're looking for vulnerabilities, maybe you're reverse engineering malware to discover what its true intentions are, right? Are probably two of the most popular use cases for reverse engineering binaries.
Yeah, I was pretty interested in reverse engineering. I was participating to some CTFs, and at the time, for example, GTB, it was not possible to be scripted, so basically there was a lot of limitations in many tools. And as long as I was able to develop my own tool on top of whatever I was learning at the time, it was basically extending from my interest. So I was implementing tools for debugging, tools for scripting, and I was basically solving all the crack miss and participating in the CTF using my own tool. So it was a way to learn, a way to extend and create something that other people can use and contribute.
Yeah. So you created the first Radare open source project. And then at some juncture, you had to make this like hard decision, right? That you wanted to add better functionality, more features, and extend it into like your vision for the future. And did you rewrite most of it for Radare2 basically at some juncture?
Yeah, it was mainly design redesign. So it was taking most of the code I had, but it needs to be rewritten. It was basically taking the functionalities, but refactoring everything to make it modular, removing global variables, global states, and making everything into a plugin. This was basically pretty critical. Took me about 3 years of work with several people that started to contribute, because in the first version, everything was monolithic. It was a single binary that was doing everything. And this is not good for modularity, plugin support, and scripting. And this was my main motivation to make a full rewrite, getting able to use R2 as not just as a tool, but also as a framework, because you can build tools on top of Radare. You can make like a UI, or you can make like other programs that use R2 libraries, like the disassembler or binary parsing.
So I wanted to ask you something. It sounded like you started on your own, then you got a couple friends helping you, but you were doing this like on the side while you still had a day job and other responsibilities. So this was like your pet project. This is very cool, by the way. I'm thinking, how the hell did you find the time?
Mainly removing sleeping time.
Okay.
Yeah, I was having some pretty weird sleep schedules. Still having them. So yeah, basically trying to find time for doing this in my spare time. And also in every single job I had, I was trying to find excuses to use my tool for that. So for example, I was working optimizing codecs for JStreamer in Fluendo, a company that's basically writing codecs for video and audio formats. And there was actually no good support in GDB for Spark and MIPS. So I was basically optimizing and implementing everything for analyzing the optimizations. And same goes for forensics. And now in NowSecure, I'm basically having time for company time to develop and improve the tooling. So it's
nice.
So Pancake, tell us about, so you basically started over with Radare2, and tell me about the plugin architecture. How does that work, and what capabilities did that allow for others to help contribute and extend?
Yeah. So you have the main program, which is R2, but there is other programs like Rabin, which is for parsing binaries, or Rafine or RIFS, which is for mounting file systems. And each of these programs link against different libraries inside R2. So R2 is implemented in separate different libraries, and each of these libraries supports plugins that are specific to its library. So for example, if you want to implement a new architecture, you need to implement an Arch plugin. The Arch plugin allows you to assemble and disassemble instructions. And it's also having a separate library for analysis. This means that you can have like plugins that are analyzing some specific switch tables, for example, or you can have one plugin for implementing a specific cryptography algorithms, and goes into a separate library. So at the end, you have programs that link against different libraries. Each library use different plugins, and you can create your own plugins, install them in your home. And also, apart from that, as long as there is JavaScript support in the core, you can implement plugins for any of these libraries in JavaScript. So this means that you can run without having to compile binaries and even building everything in WebAssembly. You can use native and JavaScript plugins without having to recompile anything.
That's awesome. But the rewrite and the plugin architecture makes it easier to support binaries from different architectures, right? Because their assembly code essentially is different across all the different architectures.
Yeah. So the main analysis loop is shared across all the architectures, which is something that no other tool similar to like disassemblers end up having their own separate analysis loop for each architecture. In Radare is like a single one, but then there is plugins for specific events in the analysis loop that can be triggered depending on the architecture or the bind format. So you have, for example, different analysis for Objective-C binaries or specific thumb2 binaries for ARM. So depending on the binary and the analysis, some different analysis end up executing in the pipeline.
Right, but the core analysis stays the same across multiple architectures, which is important.
Correct.
So, this is obviously an open source project. I recognize it from many years ago, right? It's a very popular tool. What's your greatest challenge running an open source project? Which I think is an interesting question, because what we're talking about is very technical. There's a lot of challenges to binary reverse engineering, but running this open source project, what was your major challenge over the years?
Yeah, many people think that technically is probably the most complicated part, but actually managing the community and all the contributions is probably the hardest part of of open source. And probably not the open source. It's not a problem only in the open source, but also happens when you have like a private development. You need to manage the contributions, but when you are working in the open, you are basically facing a lot of comments, a lot of public communications, different channels, different kind of reviews for organizing all the different releases, and discussing all that ends up being so difficult because everybody have their different schedules. Because, for example, in Radare, we have like a worldwide community of users and developers. So you have to work and assume that there is people in different time zones, people in different cultures, people that maybe that can be misunderstanding some expressions because the culture background is different. And this is kind of challenging. Even more for technical people, we end up just focusing on the technical decisions, which is kind of like you do this and then you get that. But when you are facing different people across the world, this can be a real challenge. So organizing all the release notes and everything, I was basically handling most of that myself, and trying to delegate it is quite difficult. So
right. So, go ahead, Lee. Jeff and then Lee.
I hate to be the one to ask this question, but I'm curious as to the impact of AI, both on like vibe coding. Is it tend to be better or worse in terms of stripping? And then how are you able to use AI in the whole decompiling process?
Yeah, so AI, starting from the development side, I think that some projects has been complaining about the effects of AI contributions and false vulnerability reports and stuff like that. In my case, I didn't really get so many bad contributions, and reviews was also helping me to get some better feedback and identifying issues in a better way. And going into the reverse engineering side, I will say that AI, I started integrating AI stuff in Radare 3 years ago, in 2023. So just at the beginning, I was playing around different ways to use AI to improve the compilation. So I was I think that was probably the first project out there integrating these technologies. Was really helpful. For example, for the compiling Unity, it was key because you can get like C# code out of disassembly, which is really handy because you have all the C# metadata and you have the disassembly. And AI and language models are able to combine all this information and get some really good compilable C# code, and it makes life so easy. And same goes for Swift, for example. So I think that AI simplifies a lot the process of high-level languages because they really understand the high-level patterns, and even if it's not one-to-one with the original source code, they are able to remove a lot of noise from the compilation. So if you use a traditional decompiler, you have a lot of strange constructions that are not really helpful or confusing. And AI is helping a lot on identifying these kind of patterns in different disassemblers.
So my question is, you started talking about, all the community and all the people contributing to your project, which is really cool. But I was thinking about, as of late, we've seen a lot of stories about a code repository gets bogus code introduced to it, and it gets, becomes malicious. And has that been a concern of you? And if it has, and you can pass on this one, by the way, but how have you been able to thwart that, or have you just been really damn lucky?
No, I mean, I think that security is something that requires a lot of effort. It's something that you cannot stop relaxing because in my case, for example, I have like fuzzing loops running 24/7. I run static and dynamic analysis tools in every single commit. I'm also nowadays I'm using AI for finding vulnerabilities, and it's really crazy the amount of things that you can end up finding. So I think that nowadays, even if someone tries to introduce something, which I think that at some point this happened because there was like the boom of people requesting CVEs, and it was pretty cheap for people to submit a pull request with a silly vulnerability or something that was tricky to get the review process. And then someone else was asking for the CVE for the actual commit that was waiting for the release to happen just to get the CVE. Actually, in my case, I think that, in the case of Radare, I think that that's something that didn't really happen outside the CVE loop at the time. And as long as I'm basically doing 24/7 security analysis all the time, I think it would be pretty hard to get this.
Pancake, my concern is like two-part because we're using it to analyze malware. So first part is, have you seen malware try to be resilient to this reverse engineering process, and specifically with Radare? And then my other concern is, what if the malware is malicious against my reverse engineering tool and trying to compromise my machine because I'm reverse engineering malicious code?
I've seen some router malware that was checking for R2 being installed. So basically checking if the process was there, like same goes for other tools. I was happy to see that R2 was considered in the list of useful tools for that.
Yeah, it's almost validation at that point, right?
Yeah.
If attackers are paying attention, it means people are using your tool, effectively.
Yeah, it means that matters. So
yeah.
So and apart from that, I didn't really saw any real attack in the sense that finding a bug, because as long as R2 is kind of like a moving target, it's pretty hard to target a specific version of Radare. Because most of the people is building it from Git. So this means that everybody can be using different compilers, different optimizations. And even if you have like one exploit for one version, it will be pretty hard to exploit it because everybody will be having different builds. So
awesome. Lee, sorry, did you have another?
I actually was going to say, it sounds like what you're doing with the scanning and AI, you'll catch not only malicious stuff, but also if I just had a bad day and committed something stupid, you'll catch it. As in mistakes. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've actually got it kind of covered from several use cases, not just find malicious, but like protect us from ourselves.
Yeah, actually, there is antivirus companies using R2 in their pipelines. They basically analyze the samples like virus total against different engines, and at the end, they send me reports. So when they get a crash or they get something that behaves worse than other tools, or they send me the binary and I can fix the things.
What's the license on Radare?
It's LGPL.
Okay, and so that allows commercial companies to use it.
Correct. I mean, the only concern, I mean, the LGPL forces you to contribute to the project or publish changes that you are doing in the source code. But as long as you can make plugins and you can link against these LGPL libraries, if you don't modify these libraries, you can make a commercial product on top of that. And if you're just using stock or tool, you can run it in batch and execute your scripts.
Yeah. Awesome. I know we're running short on time, but we want to talk about mobile apps, right? That's what NowSecure is focused on in mobile apps. And my experience with mobile apps is surrounding campaigns like Badbox, right? Reverse engineering Android apps to find the bad things that happen. But just kind of give us a sample of maybe how you use Radare and some of the other tools to reverse engineer apps, and why we care about the security of these apps.
So many people think that markets are basically the only security that matters, and if you install applications from Play Store or Apple Store, you're safe. But there is many cases that this was basically not true. Many application developers, even if they are doing safe coding practices, maybe they're using third-party libraries that they're shipping stuff that is not safe, or they are requesting more permissions than the ones that they need. And even like that, there is many mobile phones that like cheap Android phones that ship vulnerabilities in the firmware, and they don't have actually updates on this. So there is many different ways that applications can end up like not behaving properly, and it's important that you have like another second view on this security. And as long as we don't have the source code for these applications, you end up like depending on analyzing the behavior of these applications, checking the binaries, trying to decompile or identify the critical parts of this program that affects the privacy mainly, which is our main concern at NowSecure. And nowadays, with AI being integrated with almost every single product out there, is kind of risky, because AI can end up having access to all your context or all your pictures. And this is kind of tricky because there is like not a clear separation of your privacy.
Right. There's also the secrets problem too. Oftentimes, if I see research of IoT devices, right? So you got firmware on the device, you've got an app, and you've got a cloud instance. Sometimes the like key point in the research is, oh, I reverse engineered the mobile app and I got the secret or the API endpoint or the update or whatever, right? So oftentimes that is one of the things that is the security vulnerability in a lot of these apps.
Yeah. So there is a lot of bad practices in the development process, like hard coding passwords or API keys inside the binary, or basically not storing the user details in a safe way, and like in a plain text file in the directory without permission that every other applications can have permissions. So there is so many different ways that applications can do unsafe things and pass the market approve.
Yeah, it's certainly a problem that I think some people don't realize, right? Just how ripe the landscape is for vulnerabilities in mobile apps, and how we need to not just protect ourselves as users, but the developers need tools to improve, a lot of those security aspects in their mobile apps.
Yep. Yeah, so at NowSecure, we try to cover all this scope. So we have solutions for developers. They can test their own builds and get changes, like there is new vulnerabilities or new changes in the behavior of the application, and they can backtrack that. But even if you are not a developer, you can also analyze third-party applications that you need to understand if they are safe for your organization, for example. And you need to get some security reports. And the main problem that many other solutions provide is that depend on human behavior, which means that the end results are not stable. This means that if you end up doing manual analysis or do some manual steps on different binaries or different applications, maybe you will miss some steps. You will miss some details, or maybe you don't have the correct behavior for all applications in the very same time. And using automated tools like the ones that we are building allows you to get like a very stable results on the final output. So you get like the same report every time that you analyze the application, which is something really valuable.
Pancake, you're slated to speak at an upcoming OWASP event. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so OSP is organizing a conference in Vienna this year. It's a pretty huge conference about mobile security, and there is presentations, trainings about good practices for development, and not just for development, but also for analyzing applications and trying to find the best practices for identifying vulnerabilities or bugs in mobile applications. Different people from coworkers from the research team will be speaking there. So I'll be presenting in myself. I will be speaking about different plugins I will be releasing for two. These plugins are the ones that analyze Unity, Flutter, and React Native applications. So this is like third non-native applications or languages that end up generating non-native code. So it's very tricky because the mobile environment have not just native applications, you have many web apps or applications that built in bytecode, and you need specific tools for analyzing this. And my point here is that if you can use R2 for analyzing everything, you can simplify a lot your pipelines for analysis, and you can reuse analysis points or reports that you can take from other applications or other kind of binaries in using the same comments.
And you also have a conference for Radare itself in like a September, October-ish timeframe, right?
Correct. So the conference started in September, but as long as we don't have like a fixed schedule and finding like the best time for everybody, because there is like every single weekend there is a conference somewhere in the world. So finding the best one that fits most of the people, it was hard. And last time was in November, but it was basically moving from September to November. Right? It's like it started like a physical event. When COVID started, we moved to an online event. And the idea is a low-level conference. We're basically focusing only on Radare. We don't want presentations about anything else. It's not like a generic information security conference. You will only find presentations about reverse engineering, malware analysis, forensics, crypto stuff, and everything using Radare. It's a way to find and learn more about the tool, and also to meet other people from the developers and the community.
Outstanding. Well, Pancake, thank you very much for appearing on the show today. It was wonderful having you. We could probably talk at least for another hour or more about this topic, but thanks for coming on the show. And for our audience, make sure you check out NowSecure.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, everyone.
It was great.
Thanks, Pancake.
Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet Meter, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. Meter delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software, deployment, and support, Meter streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, Meter gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/meter to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/meter, METER. Coming to you from the Hacker Syndicate Studios, this is Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode number 918, being recorded on Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. I am your host, Paul Asadorian, joined My illustrious co-host, Mr. Jeff Mann, is here with us. Jeff, welcome.
Good to be here, Paul. Back inside because it got winter again outside.
I know. It's winter here, too. Mr. Bill Swearingen is here with us.
Listen, I'm bringing spring your way. I'll send it that way tomorrow. You're welcome. It's perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Josh Moppet is here with us. Josh, welcome.
I've been here not only for 50 years. It's okay at this point. I get it.
Mr. Lee Neely is here with us.
Hey, I'm here where it's 75 degrees and it was supposed to be 80, so I'm not minding that at all. Although where the hell the winter went.
Right. So you may have heard about some researchers that did some investigations into IP-based KVMs. Thought we'd start there because, well, I'm not going to go through all the research, but if you guys had any specific questions, myself and Ray, who's amazing, by the way, and a quick
Where's
part of
Ray?
that.
I want to talk to Ray.
So Ray will
You're
be
riding
featured,
his coattails from what I can tell.
yeah, 7 of the 9
Whoa.
vulnerabilities, 100%, dude. 7 of the 9 vulnerabilities were discovered by Ray, who is not old enough to drink, and will appear on Below the Surface podcast tomorrow. Is when we're scheduled to record that.
Super cool.
So yeah, check that out. Which just gives me so much hope for the youth of today, and it's one of the fascinating parts of the story.
So I've got questions, Paul.
Yeah,
I've got
let's
questions.
do the questions. I got some behind the scenes stuff.
I've got
but yeah, let's do
questions too, but not about the details of the findings. So get those out of the way first.
Yeah, I was going to say high level. So from what I understand, there were 9 separate vulnerabilities that spanned across multiple different vendors. But are those vulnerabilities related? And what were the outcomes? Of like what were the findings? What was that?
Yeah,
Don't explain. Sum up.
Yeah, I mean the findings ranged from like super critical file upload vulnerabilities, unauthenticated, that you could take over the device. That's of course like the most severe vulnerability that we found. I believe that was in one of the Chinese manufacturers, Anjeet, that we discovered on Amazon, and just bought one and started testing the firmware. The other pretty like major vulnerabilities that kind of more near and dear to my heart are cryptographic firmware signature validation was lacking. Also, like I rate these like a little higher because the device gives you or the attacker the equivalent of physically sitting in front of the system.
Yeah.
In fact, like sum that up really quick, I was doing a demo and I used a KVM, IP-based KVM to get into the BIOS and enable and disable secure boot to flop that setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the level of access. So one of the vulnerabilities that was shared by at least 2 of the vendors was no protection for password brute forcing, right? Because you really want strong authentication on the web management interface that is sitting in front of the device that basically could give an attacker physical access to your system. So that's kind of the high level of the vulnerabilities.
These are all IP-based KVMs, meaning that they potentially could be internet facing, right? Yeah. And did you guys look at? I'm sure you did, but like when you look at a Shodan or something, how many of these devices are out there?
I love this question because I get to ride off more coattails because HD Moore and
I was
Run
going to
Zero
say,
published
this
it.
was mentioned in the Ars Technica article, which I don't see in your notes, Paul. Is that
it's not in my notes.
Is that in 4, which is blank right now?
No, it's in the
placeholder for it.
In the blog post, we kind of mentioned that HD Moore and Run Zero's team did research for very similar and some of the same devices. Also, thankfully, did the search on the internet. I think it was last year, like last March or July or something like that in 2025. They were like, well, there's like maybe 800 or so. I forget the exact number that are on the internet. So we ran some Shodan queries, and so there's about 1,600. That we could find. So I actually thanked HD, who commented on my LinkedIn post. Thanks, HD. I was like, I'm glad you guys did that. So we had like a point of comparison, right? I thought that was pretty
right.
Pretty
So
cool.
we've almost doubled, right, in just over a year. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's because more have come on the market and they're low cost, right? Some of the lower ones you can get for like $30. So, use cases are, it's a home lab. right? And maybe the PC you want to access is in another room. Maybe it's a manufacturing floor. Maybe it's a healthcare environment. Maybe it's a data center. And you don't want to buy like the enterprise. Is it Vertiv? I think Vertiv is one of the big enterprise IP-based or regular-based KVMs. And they look really expensive, right? So you're like, well, I'll just buy the cheaper ones. And it accomplishes the same thing.
Yeah.
So
we've been, I know that you've been working on this for a long time because, in some of our signal groups or something, you've been super cagey. I'm working on something. How long have you been working on that? Like, I imagine it was a long road, right?
So the first disclosure went out October of 2025, which means Ray obviously had some time that he had to, tear apart the firmware, find the vulnerabilities before that. So it was the brainchild behind it wasn't me. Again, I take not a whole lot of credit for a lot of aspects of this project. I tried to make that come clear in my social media posts. My coworker Mickey was the brainchild behind it. So Ray, you may recognize the researcher because he was in high school and discovered a vape detection device.
Oh, I remember. I remember. Yeah, I remember.
I had read an article. Mickey saw that, and I believe Ray is based like in Portland, where our office is, and so Mickey hired that person. I was like, well, that's awesome. And then Mickey's like, well, we need a project. He's like, well, Mickey's like, I've been thinking, Mickey's found more CVEs than ungodly amounts. And he's like, well, let's look at IP-based KVMs and let's look at the low end of the market in terms of price. And so gave that project to Ray and was like, here, like, go test this one. And they're like, oh, we need to buy this other one. Like, all right, we'll go test that one. And then pretty quickly in the beginning stages of that project, Mickey's like, Paul, you can jump in. I'm like, well, I bought a Jet KVM. I'm like, I'll do the testing on that one. And so that was my piece. Little did I know that Jet KVM is the best secured out of the entire bunch. And I pulled my hair out for like the better part of a month trying to discover vulnerabilities. They actually fixed one of the vulnerabilities while I was doing the testing, which I was like getting ready to write the disclosure report. And I was like, well, let me just go back and test it like one more time and then go write the report. And when I looked, I was like, that vulnerability doesn't even exist anymore. I guess I can talk about it because it doesn't exist anymore. But the way, and their code is all open source too for Jet KVM, which is interesting. So if you go analyze that like with Cloud Code, it'll tell you, hey, Jet KVMs, when they update firmware, they hit an API endpoint in the cloud, api.jetkvm.com. And if there's a firmware update available, it spits back like, I think it spits back the hash in that response, as well as a URL where the device can go get firmware. Well, what I discovered earlier on was that URL that it spits back goes to update.jetkvm.com, and that was HTTP update.jetkvm.com. I'm like, well, so if I'm an attacker and I'm in the middle, I just got to trigger the device to go to the API, get the thing. Then I just need to spoof the update one. There's no SSL protecting it. And then I was like, boom. Then I can send it any firmware I want. And then I dug through the firmware and I'm like, is there any cryptographic firmware signing? And there wasn't. I'm like, cool. I've got 2 disclosures, right? And then quickly that became 1 because they flipped it and update.jetkvm.com uses SSL. So then I proceeded to test every SSL attack known to man, hence my man in the middle beast scripts that helps you automate testing all of the different. I mean, I was spoofing NTP, changing the time on the device to try and execute an SSL attack that had to do with like changing time. There's actually a script called DeLorean that helps you do that. And it passed all the tests. Like if you want to go test yourself, cool. And if you find something, I will applaud you, but I could not find that. So that's how I came to create the script to test all that stuff. Jeff.
Quick clarification question. You work for a hardware company, so we're talking about devices, right? These are physical devices?
These are physical devices.
I
Correct.
remember KVMs back in the day. So what distinguishes the old kind of KVMs in this IP base? Is it just what cable and what port you're plugging into?
Yeah, it's funny. Some of the journalists asked this question when I was briefing them, and I was like, remember back in the day, like for me, it was Solaris systems, and I had a bunch of them, and I needed a device that was physical cabling that went to all the systems and allowed me to use one monitor, mouse, and keyboard, and then switch between
Real
them.
common in data centers because you'd have one
100%.
keyboard and one monitor on a pull-out on the rack.
Yeah,
on the
was it
tray.
black?
Connect to all
Black
the
box?
servers in the
Was
rack.
it black? It was black something. Black box. Black. There was a manufacturer of that gear back then. Was it Black Box that made those KVM switches? I think it was. In any case, those weren't connected to the network. Like they had firmware because there
Black
was like
Box was the name.
Yeah, and there was like keystrokes you could do. So rather than pushing the physical button, you could you could enter a keystroke and it would switch, right? And there was a couple of keystroke combinations for scrolling and stuff like that. But those weren't connected to the network.
I remember
time went
there was
on,
just a dial. It was like
early ones. It was a dial,
EFG.
right? Remember the dial? Yeah. But then they became over the network, right? So why do I have to go physically in front of a monitor, mouse, and keyboard when I have one at my computer at my desk? So now over the network, I can connect to a web interface, uses like web RTC technology typically, and interfaces with this little device. Right. I don't know.
It sounds like a great idea and a stupid idea all at the same time.
I have the devices back, but then I had a little device plugged into the network.
I don't even believe that you haven't. I don't believe you.
You don't. It's all connected. It's right. Oh, here it is. You can see it. See, that's a Jet KVM that I'm using on one of my Windows PCs I have here on my desk. So it's on the network and connected to the HDMI port, USB. And when I connect to the Jet KVM, I can basically sit in front of the computer, right? And so it made it easier to access remotely. I can get into the BIOS. I can do everything. I can boot from removable media, which is kind of an interesting part of the vulnerability and attack path. Is if I can connect and hack your IP-based KVM, I can then boot your system off removable media that I provide. So I could, boot a Linux on your Windows system and recover files and get around protections that way. So that's why I was like, the security of these things needs to be like pretty good, because if someone gains access to it, it's like game over.
Yeah, you have these expectations that security should be this good, but we're talking about $30 KVM. I think you said from some, from names that maybe you haven't heard of. How was the response?
It's interesting. So I'll start with a positive because this was a really huge win for me. So we ended up creating a case with US CERT because I was like, guys, there's 9 vulnerabilities, 4 different vendors. We're trying to coordinate responses. I'm like, we need to file a case, right? So I ended up spearheading that effort, created a case. By the way, US CERT was amazing through this whole process.
Good.
And Jet KVM, the co-founder of Jet KVM, popped in US CERT. So US CERT will reach out to all your vendors for you and pull them into this one case so we can all communicate together, which is like hugely useful. Yeah. And the co-founder was like, he's like, so you got 2 vulnerabilities. I'm like, yeah, I got no cryptographic firmware validation. I said, and we can brute force guess passwords on the web interface with no rate limiting. And I'm like, I think you should fix these things. He's like, yep, we do. A couple weeks later, he's like, yep, fixes are committed, all set, good to go.
Whoa.
I tested the fixes, all good. It was awesome.
Nice.
I mean, and those were like things that some could, it's not like I found an RCE in their code, but their response was just amazing, right? So
what time frame were you talking to US CERT?
When did we open the case? We opened the case
before or after the partial shutdown?
Right.
I think the case was opened in January, maybe.
Okay.
Roughly, I have to go back and look, but yeah, around that time frame.
So probably before, maybe before.
Yeah, they've been very responsive throughout the entire process. So that was good. Some of the other Chinese manufacturers, not so great. NG really just didn't. I mean, they sent us one response early on, and then both Eclipsium and US CERT tried to reach back out to go, if you got a fix, you can tell us about it. Like, if you got a fix, you got to tell us about it because we'll validate it and make sure it works. But we heard nothing back from them other than just one email. back from them. And, we weren't able to contact them. So those vulnerabilities weren't, unless they fixed them and didn't tell us. I haven't dug in to see if there is, they don't publish their firmware. It's like an update mechanism. And I'm like, well, I don't know. You didn't respond. So as far as I'm concerned, you're vulnerable until someone else can prove it otherwise, because I'm not spending any more time on it. You didn't participate in the process. And then it's the in-between. GLINet fixed some of them, not all of them. It's interesting when we think about what constitutes a fix from a vendor when you're doing disclosure, and what constitutes a planned fix. And so they're like, well, we have a planned fix. I'm like, that's great. When are you going to release that fix? What's the time frame? Oh, we don't have a time frame. I'm like, well, then that's not a plan. That's just a promise. And it could be an empty promise. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no fix. And if there's no date when you're going to publish a fix, I can't even say it's planned at that point. That's not planning. That's just promises. We don't work like that. So, hopefully they do fix them. I really do hope that they fix them. There was some pushback, the day before we were going to disclose. Now, I had brief journalists, blog post was ready to go. Everything is all set. Everyone's all on the same page. And then at the 11th hour, one of the vendors comes oh, can we push this out a week or two? And I'm like, no. I'm like, you can't. I'm like, no, we're going tomorrow. With or without you, we're going. And I'm like, here's why.
Yeah. So
I had to give some reasons. I'm like, one, the vulnerability you're talking about is a pretty low CVSS score. I think it was one of the ones that was scored 3 or 4 on the CVSS 3.1 scale. I'm like, 2, I'm not publishing exploit code. Although others on the team were like, let's publish exploit code. That'd be awesome. I'm like, no, we don't need to publish exploit code. So we're not doing that. And I'm like, all the reason you've had since last October or, November to fix this issue. We've given you even beyond our standard 90-day window to fix it. And talking to other researchers, I give them 30 days. I'm like, well, we're nice. We give them 90 days. And so after 90 days, unless you have a really good reason, BIOS manufacturers, we've given them more time in the past because they've got a supply chain issue. They have to notify, the OEMs. The OEMs have to create a patch. They have to push it out. They have a good reason. So we have in the past given them more time. In this case, I'm like, no, you knew about it. It's firmware. You can just fix it and produce a patch, and you didn't. So sorry, we're going. Which was, I had to, much of my team I think was away or busy at the time. I made the executive decision. I'm like, this is what I said. I'm like, we're going. If anyone wants to challenge me on it, let's go. But I don't think we should. Jeff.
So clearly, Paul, where we've had discussions over the last several months about, the future of vulnerability reporting and all the problems with CVEs and so on and so forth, you are somewhere in the midst of the whole process. What can you tell us now about the whole process? You've already been talking about your experience with the vendors and with the US CERT, but what about the aspects of the process of getting a CVE, getting it rated, ranked, approved? I don't know what you call it. Certified?
Yeah. So in this process, because we're not yet a CNA, and I have to say at the top of this answer, become a CNA, because it cuts out any kind of middle person, middle organization, which just helps you in this process. Now, having said that, US CERT was great. They're like, hey, do you want us to create CVEs for all these vulnerabilities? I'm like, yes, please do. You have all the details. I gave them all our documentation, all of our disclosures. So they had more than enough information to create and score all of these CVEs. And
are they
did
themselves a CNA, or do they work with somebody else within CISA that does it?
It's CISA, yeah. So the CNA ended up being CISA because CISA acts as the agency for US CERT to do this. So we were working with individuals within CISA, and they were like, we'll create the CVEs. I'm like, that's fine.
You were talking to the people with people skills.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They were great. They were great to work with. They're like, yep. And I'm like, can you amend this part of this CVE? And then there's also questions it did come up one time where they're like, or twice, they're like, should this really be a CVE? And the first time, my coworker, so the other nice part about having a US CERT case is you can assign multiple people from your organization to the case. And so my coworker jumped in. He's like, no, this should be a CVE. I've got previous CVEs that are basically the exact same vulnerability, so it should be a CVE.
Nice.
And then CERT was like, yep, okay, fine, we're good. And then late in the process, they were like, I don't know if this one should be a CVE. And I went back to Ray, and Ray's like, no, here's the reason. And then I was like, this is the reason. They're like, okay, no, that's fine. So you do have some justification in the process, but I thought it was fine. It wasn't like they didn't, once we gave a good reason, they didn't question it anymore. If we had a lame answer, it might have gone different, but I was like, no, this is a vulnerability. They're like, yeah, cool.
So I got an old fart question for you.
Yeah.
So you remember I remember you said you started with Suns. Do you remember what used to happen when you unplugged the Sun keyboard?
Oh,
Or
bad
if you hit
things
the
would happen.
L1A key, or if you had a serial console, you hit the break key.
Would it halt the system?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
You can resume, but it would halt the system.
Right.
On the servers, there was a key switch that would disable that. Otherwise, you had to make a change to the Etsy default keyboard, I think it was, or something like that. Anyway, I had a flashback when you mentioned that, because I remember
Right.
when I was first doing Sun administration and it was all serial consoles, hitting the break key by mistake because it was right next to the escape key. And
Yep.
if you're doing VI, you use the escape key a lot. And when you're on a multi-user system, it's exciting when you halt the system.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not
Oh,
the
yeah.
word.
Huh?
It's not exciting. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. Well, imagine,
It begs the question of impact too. If attackers get in, these devices allow you to control the power and reset.
Yeah.
So you could conceivably just go in and start turning stuff off.
But, I mean, the idea of a KVM is very useful, but having one that's vulnerable, I was worried when you first started talking about this that it was the air quotes name brand ones as opposed to these little inexpensive ones, because that would be, like if it was Raritan. I mean, damn.
They're next.
But
Yeah,
then again,
we had that
Raritan's big enough,
discussion
they'd
today.
they'd jump on it and get it fixed. Oh hell, Black Box would too in the day. I don't even know if they're a thing anymore, but they were a thing, and they were good. So anyway, moving on.
So,
this is very cool.
Just really quick, couple of things that I wish I had done. What I learned from the process, maybe what I could do better. Make sure you define all of your data points that you want included in things like CVE records, because if it changes, then it's like a process to get it changed. So
Like
what
what?
happened
I
was,
don't quite understand.
like we told everyone that we were going to publish a blog post, and we sent a draft. But what I didn't realize is in that draft, it had a blog post URL and a title that were matching, and marketing came in later, and no fault of their own. They were like, we want like the best title for this, so we're going to make a new title. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, you're marketing, that's your job. Go for it. But they did that. It changed the URL after the CVE records had already been issued. So then I had to go back into each case and request an update. And I think there still might be some that are referencing the old URL, which redirects now. But now I have to, it just created more of a process nightmare than it needed to be. So make sure you have your data sets, and that's your final data set before you communicate it to CERT and all of the, other vendors and stuff. So
That was unexpected item for the hot wash.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's hard sometimes to change people's perceptions in terminology. So like I tried to tell everyone, like, I didn't write a new tool. I vibe coded some scripts that chain together existing tools. And I'm like, these are for researchers. They're not for defenders. But because it was kind of like splitting hairs, some of the press and in other people's posts about it were like, oh, Eclipsium released new tools to detect this vulnerability. I'm like, no, that's not what we did. It's not they had a script that can help security researchers find similar vulnerabilities. So that was one thing I got to work on, is setting the expectations about what we're publishing ahead of time and more clearly, so that they don't get misconstrued, which can be hard, because again, we're managing 9 vulnerabilities, 4 vendors, 2 researchers, US CERT, marketing, and our PR agency, in addition to journalists.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
And a partridge in a pear tree. Yeah. So I think all the other stuff I covered.
I feel like this was basically an interview segment as the first half hour of the news.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
I mean, it was
nothing.
something
That's fair.
cool that Paul spent a lot of time on, and now we're all like,
And
this
we've
is
been
really
dying
cool.
to hear about it for how many months?
Long
6
time.
months.
Since like
long time.
October.
We've been getting hints of it. Yeah.
Right.
Ages.
So
I mean,
I do have to
didn't
say,
even have gray hair.
I will continue. I will
Paul,
continue.
it's time
right.
for 5 questions.
Yeah, I will continue using my Jet KVM. I thought their response was great, and I put that device through a lot of security testing, and didn't uncover any heinous vulnerabilities. So they're, when they first came to market, they had some other vulnerabilities and issues that they were fixing along the way, and they continue to do that. And that's all we can ask, right? If you're asking every vendor on the planet to come up with a perfectly secure product when they bring it to market, we all know that's not going to happen. The best they can do is make a commitment to security, work with researchers, and fix their problems. And of all the vendors, Jet KVM did that like so well. So I want to applaud them. It was big. It made me feel good. I was like, there's still hope, right? And I convinced some vendors to
There's
make
still
their
hope.
stuff
They
more
just
secure.
don't have a venue. Oh, you're talking about that other kind of hope. Never mind.
Yes. Yes. Not that.
So-
not the conference hope.
Yeah.
So actually, your story with how Jet KVM worked versus some of the other vendors reminded me of my story 8 that I put in there. It's about corporate registry had a problem in their app, and it was a weird problem where if you want to, you're working in a dashboard for your company, you want to access another company, you put in a code, you enter an authenticator token, and then you have access to it. But it turns out if instead of putting that access token in, you hit back in your browser, like somewhere like 4 times back to your portal, you'd actually wind up in the other portal where you weren't supposed to have access yet. That was the scenario, and they took things offline and fixed it. Once it was to close, my thing that parallels is that the guy who found it published the issue and told them about it, and they blew him off. And then another guy found it, published it on Twitter. I have a hard time saying X. And they paid attention and fixed it. And it's like, dudes, where's your vulnerability disclosure response? I mean, come on. This thing affects this is live.
Well, once
system
it's
with a lot of
public,
customers.
right? Like once it's
Right.
that
Well, they
drives me
both
crazy.
disclosed it publicly, I believe.
Mm.
And it was like, what the hell, man? And oh, by the way, how about robust testing of your authentication methods? I mean, this is one of those, it feels like order matters. They set the access token before verifying the access.
Yeah,
or
those
something
bugs
like
are hard
that.
to find, though. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find that with scanning tools or
Dude, that's the
AI,
kind of stuff
right?
that Trent finds
Yeah.
all the time, and I'm always like, how? Like, just tell me how. How do you find that? And
Right.
he's like, well,
Right.
I tried it, man, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
What made you think about like get to there and then go back for? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that stuff is. You're right. You can't find that with automated tools.
Well,
right?
no. Automated tools can give you like the lay of the land, and they can find stuff. I'm not saying they don't; they do, but it gives you a lot of data. But then it's up to you as the researcher to be creative, right? And I went through that process too. I was like, just tell me about the code, right? Tell me about the application. Like, how does it work? And then I'm like, all right, well, what if I try that? And I tried some manual stuff. And then I'm like, all right, well, based on that, now run some automated tests here, right? So a lot of it it's good for information gathering. It's good at finding certain attacks. But there's other attacks where, we've got job security against AI when we find this stuff because only a human is going to, right now, only a human is going to be able to find that stuff.
Well, sometimes it's just by dumb luck. I mean, what if the guy, he was trying to access another company, but he didn't have the token, so he just went back, right, to where he was in his dashboard and found himself accessing it. It's like, holy crap.
I mean,
and then he
that-
probably
It's interesting though, but
repeated it.
LLMs now can read about that attack and then suggest it and help you, and maybe it may be automated.
So
too.
in the future,
it's a
it'll
constant
make-
learning. Yeah.
for that developer's future self, there's some help out there, which is cool. Like I said, I just it's 2026, guys. Take your vulnerability report seriously. It's not an
for
affront.
sure.
I mean, you can be mad as hell that you've got a vulnerability in your code. That's fine, but don't shoot the messenger. I mean, I used to get so upset when somebody found a bug in my code, but it didn't matter. They didn't take it out on them.
Isn't that crazy?
Indeed.
They're like they get
You're messing up
mad
decades, man.
at free work. That just blows me
Right.
away. It just absolutely blows me away. Like they should have done that work, right? They should
Well-
have done that testing.
Right. Well, I'm thinking, how long have we been doing vulnerability disclosure type stuff? Is it like most of 10 years now?
When was the discussion between full and responsible disclosure? Does anybody remember?
If you do, it'd be cool.
Oh, there's some
It's
classic
probably more like
cases,
15 years.
maybe longer.
Yeah.
So
It was
if
bad.
bad enough,
I mean, it's
Early
better.
we had two different
2000s.
philosophies, and we had a war about it, and it was
Yeah,
15
yeah.
years ago.
That was 15 years ago. Okay.
Hmm.
So as I was thinking back then, 15 years ago, people were justifiable, resistant, et cetera, to the whole idea. But it's been 15 years,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
It's like
it
the
still
word
blows to have
cyber.
weakness in your code, but like Bill said, free research is free research. You know, take the guy out and buy him a beer.
That's right. That's exactly right. Like some level of thanks.
Yeah. That's a better way to put it. But yeah, exactly. You know, acknowledge them. I mean, you know, he may have just saved your bacon. So anyway, so I didn't mean to get into rant mode there, but you know, I just was thinking about that with your other story, Paul. It's like, come on, guys, this is not hard. I mean, it may be hard to fix, but come on, the process isn't.
We
Yeah.
have not done it right. We have not enough sanctions against companies that don't fix their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We have not enough incentives for companies to do things right. We incentivize the lowest bidder. I mean, look at the space program.
Yeah.
And every piece of military grade hardware.
Mhm.
And we incentivize lowest bidder, lowest cost, and security is always a cost center. And that's a problem.
Yeah, my story number 19 is a story where I don't believe the vulnerability got fixed. It kind of left you hanging. Like it didn't look like it got fixed. But this is an amazing story for a lot of different reasons. So my story number 19, I hacked my laundry card. Here's what I learned. And the story starts out and he says, I'm a CS student. I've never touched NFC security before. I had no idea what a MyFair Classic was, how sectors and blocks work, or what a value block format looked like. I had my new FlipperZero and Claude code. I pointed both of them at my laundry card. Within an hour, I had reverse engineered the card format, figured out the balance and coding, and discovered an architectural flaw that makes every deduction reversible, meaning unlimited laundry, free laundry, essentially, is what they discovered. Using a FlipperZero that I believe he says at the beginning of the article, they won at a CTF competition. They used Claude code to win the CTF competition, which got them the FlipperZero.
God, that's
But then on the way, you know, after he got it, he was like, I wonder if I can read my laundry card. Spawned another session. The architectural flaw is very interesting. And quote the article again. This works because the system separates writing from validating. The reload machine signs the data. The washer trusts the signature, but can never create a new one. And the washer is the one that ducks the values from the NFC card to say that you ran a wash. Well, you can just go ahead and overwrite that value and run it again. And then the washer will deduct the value. And then you just go change the value and run it again. And since the signature stays static through that, because the signature only gets updated if you actually try to reload the card.
So
with
it's a
value on it.
feature. And it's
a
not
feature.
That's
it's not a bug at all.
Yeah, and I don't believe they fixed it. And this was a MyFair Classic one, like the protocol that's been broken since like 2008.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
on the
probably
card.
in use at every university across the country, if not the world.
Right. And I don't want to say using AI for security research is a magic bullet. However, we have ideas as hackers, and to kind of take away some of that, I had to spend weeks or months understanding the MyFair Classic protocol, which is super complex. But like, I just have this idea. That's pretty cool how it can enable, you know, researchers to do this kind of work. But I also at the same time, I don't want to take away the time that we spend learning something either, right? But in this case, we did get to the answer. Much more
I
quickly.
still think of it like I more and more, you know, like just more and more. The AI is a tool that enables you to accomplish tasks, right? And it's not magic, right? And the creativity that goes into a lot of like novel exploits or anything will still need to come from a human, but it will. The AI enables you to try all the things that we already know about with. You know, like, hey, you go do all that stuff that we already know about, right?
Yeah.
Maybe take that off my plate as I like try though, you know, something a little bit more, odd, or something like that. I just,
Yeah.
it truly has
What I
just
like, Bill,
become
too,
like a great tool.
You got me thinking, like, if you've written a requirements document for a feature or software in the past and it hasn't gotten implemented, and this happened to me, and I took that requirements document. Now I did a lot of other prompting with Cloud, but I'm like, can you just go write this in Python? Like, here's a requirements document I wrote. And I didn't exactly say that. I'm like, look, read this requirements document. I want to write it in this language. I want to use this version. I want it to be Docker. I don't want it to be Docker. So I set some parameters, right? And then I'm like, go read through it, create a plan with phases and milestones. Let me review the plan, and then I'll make adjustments to the plan. And then I'll be like, all right, start small. Like, do phase 1A, go do that first and kind of build upon it. And then I'm like, all right, stop. Let me do some testing. But if you follow that process, it's amazing how it can take a requirements document, like your idea, and turn that into a working product. Now, does it have bugs, limitations, false positives? Yeah, sure, maybe, right? But then you keep iterating and hopefully it gets better, or turn it over to what I call like real engineers, right? Like, I'm not a real full-fledged programmer or engineer that builds massive, pieces of software. There's people way better at that than I am. I'm like, all right, here's like your proof of concept, right? This is where I like to add value to my organization. Like, hey, I had this idea. I did this proof of concept. Like, I kind of fleshed out a whole bunch of stuff for you. Like, omit that, but add this kind of, and now I'm like, here, proof of concept. Like, so now go put it in a product and make it like a real thing.
Speaking of real engineers and something that AI can't do, did you guys watch?
Why don't I just have a Miller flashback?
Yeah.
Real men of engineering.
Yeah. Real men. Have you guys watched Joe Grand's $75 million Bitcoin hack video yet?
Dude, I watched some of it. I didn't sit down and watch the whole thing yet.
Oh my gosh, you guys have to watch this.
Like, it's like God-like soldering skills, dude. I watched his previous videos, right?
Listen,
like,
I don't know. Like, first of all, it is shot like a cinematic movie.
I'm glad you said that, Bill, because I was like, am I being too excited about the way that this was filmed?
But yes.
The way that it's filmed is amazing.
Like, so I don't know if you guys know, but Joe has been. So Joe Grand is, ex-Loft, or, I don't know if X is, so
there's
Loft.
But there's for Joe's background, I just want to highly recommend the interview that I did with Joe, because I'm super proud of it. He opened, we had a great conversation. It's in an interview series we call it Hacker Heroes. And Joe Grand was one of them. I remember it fondly because
if we had a Hall of Fame, man, if we had a Hall of Fame, he's in there for sure. He's, first of all, he's just he's the nicest dude,
nicest guy. Yeah,
literally, like he's easygoing and he's just easy to talk to. He's just such a real dude. But over the last couple of years, he's been really interested in understanding glitching to be able to bypass security boundaries in hardware.
He talked about that in the interview. He gave probably the best description. The way he explains it is I think better.
It's unbelievable, dude. He came out the SecKC and he walked through a demo, and and this is something that like I've been aware of for years but never understood. I'm aware of it, but it's just magic. I don't know. It's magic. Some guy does some glitching. I don't even know what that means, right? And Joe talks for 20 minutes. And like, oh my God, I totally get it. Well,
you understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what he has done is he has made a custom circuit board and custom equipment to be able to recover Trezor devices that the people have forgotten the pin codes to.
Crypto wallets. They're crypto wallets.
Hardware.
Is there a name for hardware crypto wallets, or we just call them hardware crypto wallets?
I think we just say hardware crypto wallets.
Yeah.
And so this it's all, is it a documentary? I think so, right? Like, cause I think that there's another part coming out soon.
He did say there was a part too. Yep.
Yeah. But
like, talk about like cinematography. It's cinematography. Like, there's a thing where he's sitting in like a big stadium, and just like the way they filmed it, I'm like,
dude,
am I watching a Tarantino movie, or am I watching something from Joe?
Well, I don't know if you caught it, but the way he's getting in is not with voltage glitching. He's using electromagnetic glitching of that processor.
Right.
That's it. It's so neat. It's so brilliant. He's helping people recover hundreds. And so like when he says 75 million, that's in total. And he goes through
crossing multiple cases. Yeah.
He goes through the stories of the people that he's helping, of how they lost, how they lost the PIN, how they lost the seed phrase, all of those kind of things. Beautiful, man. It's just beautiful work.
Well, speaking of hardware stuff, I had a couple of stories related to that. A quick one. I don't know if you guys have played around with the ESP32 Bus Pirate, but essentially it's turning that inexpensive ESP32 hardware from M5 Stack and LilyGo into a Bus Pirate. And a Bus Pirate, right, is basically can interface with different types of hardware using different types of protocols, UART, JTAG, SPI.
Neat.
And this latest update introduced RF into the mix because these devices have RF protocols, RFID, sub-gigahertz, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. And so that was integrated into this firmware update. And I also think they updated the documentation because the last time I tested it, the documentation was kind of rough. And I'm like, okay, I got the firmware on there. And like, I think I used it to interface with a UART port. And I was like, that's cool. I'm like, what else can I do with it? And then the documentation, I'm like, what kind of cable do I need? And I think since then I've bought a bunch of the connector cables, right? There's like the quick connector that breaks out into like DuPont cables. It can be male or female. So you need like a bunch of those. And I think I bought all of that and have it. So I can't wait to go back because the latest update looks pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. I mean, or you could just buy a Bus Pirate, but which I like. When I last tested the Bus Pirate was a while ago now, it was a little buggy. Speaking of glitching, like it was a little glitchy, you know?
In what sense?
ESP32 Bus Pirate was the same way. Like the Bus Pirate stuff doesn't necessarily work the first time.
Yeah.
Or the documentation is just kind of slightly off and you need to do this parameter rather than that parameter, or it doesn't dump the SPI flash right the first time. So you got to do it. I mean, you always do it multiple times and then hash all your output. And if they're different, then something went wrong. Right.
Right.
So it was kind of glitchy like that. But I like the regular Bus Pirate. I like the interface. The screen and the cables that it comes with is super nice. It's got those round barrel connectors, super nice. But this is really inexpensive, right?
$10,
$10 to $30, plus some cables that you can get on parts places for like less than $1,
like stuff you probably already have, right?
And stuff you probably already have, right? For you should have it all the cables because you spend probably $7 and you can have most of the combinations that you'll ever need to interface with these devices. Have more than one of each of them, right?
And if you already had some, you spent $7, you don't care that you got a duplicate.
Right.
That's right. You're going to use it someday anyway.
Yeah. Versus, I think I got this one. No, I don't. Oh.
So that was pretty cool. But my story number 5 is one that's, I think, really going to grind our gears in something we've talked about in the industry for a long time. And this is like in this week's segment of dumb laws, we started, I think, last week before with age verification to download Linux, which is ridiculous. They're now trying to mandate that 3D printers detect if you're trying to print a weapon.
So I have a question. Is printing a weapon illegal?
Manufacturing your own weapons is legal in the United States of America so long as they have a serial number and you are not someone who is not allowed to possess a weapon.
Right. Depends on the state too, though. But certain states are trying to say you cannot. Well,
but
Washington
they can't preempt that because federally you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, they can't make a law canceling a federal law.
But if you print and let's just stay with AR or whatever, an AR lower, right? And if I download that off the internet, there's no serial on it though, right?
You can print a serial on it.
You could hell, you could add a serial number to that. You're
printing it. You have to register it. You have to work with the local gun laws.
No, you don't. Depending on the local gun laws, you may have to take it to an FFL and get it registered. It's it's most states you don't have to.
Right.
But you have to register it before you can print it, but it doesn't have a registration until you print it.
No, you don't have to register it.
I'm looking for that circular logic, Josh.
Well, the laws in every state differ. So Washington, just as an example, Washington State legislation bill HB 2320 criminalizes the printing of unregistered guns. It seeks to impose a requirement on printers
That's
sold
what I'm
in
getting
the
at,
state,
Josh.
That makes sense.
right,
Yeah,
to
sorry.
phone home and check a database of known firearms and refuse to print them when asked.
Can you
Now, this
register
law
a
has
gun
not-
that hasn't been printed yet or doesn't exist yet?
Right.
if I
And so,
invent-
but this
so
law
if I
has not,
invent a new
this law's not
one-
in the books.
Okay.
It's
The
not
governor
gonna
has not
survive the
signed.
first court case.
Yeah. And I don't even think it's going to get signed into law based on the ridiculousness because it's unenforceable.
Right.
Right.
I mean,
Let's go back to technology for a
that's
moment.
not
How do you-
necessarily a litmus test for law, Paul.
well, I mean,
Yeah.
That's not even a litmus test for gun laws. Let's put it this way:
No,
the
that's
fact
true.
that they
Yeah.
have assault weapons bans. So, this is really funny. So they put assault weapons bans all over the place for the longest time, and they're back in a lot of states. So right now, you can buy a lever action AR, a bolt action AR, a single shot AR, a fixed magazine AR that you load from the ejection port. There's so many ways to a bullet button AR.
yeah.
Mhm.
An AR that doesn't have a pistol grip, but instead has a hunting rifle stock, a Monte Carlo stock, they're calling it.
Yeah.
So there are so many ways to get around these laws. It's not even funny. And let's be blunt, it's get around. I mean, right now, if you go out and I'll go even more extreme, if you go out and pick up what is known as an FRT, a forced reset trigger,
Which are incredible.
oh my God, they're so much fun.
Is that like a bump? Is that like a bump stock?
It is a bump stock in a trigger.
That's right.
So basically, they make them for pistols, they make them for rifles. You hold this, you pull the trigger, and it goes off. It feels like a full auto. It is not a full auto. Your finger is pulling the trigger for every round that comes out.
So the way it works, Paul, is instead of like a bump with a bump stock, you kind of had to finesse it a little bit to get that.
Yeah.
So
right.
a forced reset, when the action comes back, it forces the trigger back ready. So if you just pull pressure, your finger is forced back into reset, but you're forcing it. So it's just,
it's like a bump stock in the trigger. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It is amazing. It's
I mean, it's just
super fun.
it backs up my notion that banning things doesn't always get the desired result of safety, right? Which is usually why we're trying to ban something for safety. It gets the desired result of politicians to appeal to their base because they did something that their base is applauding because there's a belief that their constituents want to get on board with, and therefore you pass the law and your constituents are like, oh, that's great. Like constituents are like, we need more gun laws. They're like, great, we'll pass some more gun laws. And they only do that. Like, it's the only way laws make sense in my head because some of them are so ridiculous, and it's a win. But when you look at the benefit to society in terms of safety, for many of these laws, the goal should be safety. It doesn't move the needle for all the reasons you guys are saying, because there's ways around the ban, or criminals are going to commit
So is
crime
it
and
gonna
break
be-
laws anyway.
Like, imagine if this were to go through and you were to modify your firmware to not check that database of known,
Correct.
like, is that illegal?
Like a criminal would do, who's already
Right.
going to break the law.
Yeah, because
It even gets easier. An AR lower is a geometric shape. It doesn't have a barrel. You can
Right.
take an AR lower and give it to a child,
That's
and
yeah.
technically, there's nothing they can do with it except beat you with it because there's no way to fire a round out of this thing.
But I was also thinking, like, you can break the parts up into multiple
Mhm.
pieces.
There
and
are already
glue them together. I mean, it's just like a million ways to
there
get
are
around these.
There are AR lowers that are built out of plates of steel that are bolted together.
Hmm.
There are AR lowers. One guy took a cutting board, chopped it up, glued it together, and then milled it out to make an AR lower.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
like,
there's also, you can build your own 3D printer and code your own firmware, like you can fire Claude code. It's like,
Fine,
you
I'll
know what
just
I mean?
make
Like,
my own 3D
let's make
printer.
my own printer. I mean, people do that, right? I mean, that's
was it
not
a
for
rep wrap
everyone.
that you could
It's-
print?
Can
like
you
80% of
3D
the parts
print
on
a
with another
3D
rep wrap?
printer?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, now like Bamboo is you know, they've come to market and not require this level of skill. But I remember, you know, and Bill, you remember this too, when everyone started in the hacking community using 3D printers, you'd have at least 2 3D printers because one 3D printer could print parts for the other 3D printer
right.
to enhance or fix it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, good
So it
luck
just
with
makes
that.
no.
It's absolutely crazy.
It's nuts.
Absolutely crazy. They So my favorite, and I'm a gun owner, and you know, I haven't gone shooting in a while, but I am a gun
Yeah,
owner.
same.
And my favorite part was when you take the same action and put it in a different stock, and all of a sudden, no, it's an assault weapon, ban it.
Yeah.
It's like, y'all are idiots. That's all I have to say. They're idiots about this stuff.
Well, then they'll just say, like, we're just going to ban 3D printers, right? I mean, that's when we take banning to an extreme.
Don't
That's
ban 3D
what we
printers.
do.
They're as close to a replicator as we've gotten so far. Let
It is a
people 3D print to
replicator.
their heart's content. You know what? Make housing affordable.
3D printers don't kill people.
Right.
Something.
Bad guys do.
Lack of affordable housing, lack of jobs, lack of career paths, lack of American dream is what kills people in my opinion. That's my
Why is
opinion.
it so hard for people to understand that?
I want to deviate a little bit from hardware and go to my story number 16.
Can we do
Which-
somebody else's stories for a change, Paul?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I had my stories
if
up.
only
and I
Jeff
was
had
looking
some
at
stories, we could go there, but,
Well,
yeah.
I do have some
Jeff,
stories.
what's
Well,
your favorite?
I would like to shift gears. I mean, we're kind of talking about legislation a little bit.
Yeah.
And since Josh is on, I'm really, and Bill and Lee and you, Paul. I brought up last week that the National Cyber Strategy had finally been published, but we didn't really dig into it. And I figured out how to use PPWorks this week and actually list the 6 pillars out so that they're there as a reference
great
item. And it only took me a half an hour to trial and error.
Wait, Jeff, did you say you used PPWorks, not an AI? All right, fine.
No, I did not use an AI. I never intentionally use AI. And I will continue that. I'm weakening on a couple things, but I'm standing strong. But
I had a question about this whenever you're ready, Jeff.
Well, so the 6 pillars are out there, and the published document, which is just it's like a 4-page document. There's not really that much to it at the end of the day. And I actually have a follow-up article, somebody critiquing it, that says, it's just the high level talking points. The details are coming later. And, we've been waiting for this thing for months and months and months, those that have, some sort of business or wish to do business with the federal government, which is why I'm waiting to get Josh's opinion on this stuff. But I would like to see us, for all the stories that we give, have these 6 pillars in mind. Keep these, learn these things, memorize these things, and apply them to the stories that we're talking about to some degree. But, in case you're not in front of the show notes, the 6 pillars are: shape adversary behavior, details to follow; promote common sense regulation; modernize and secure federal government networks; secure critical infrastructure; sustain superiority in critical and emerging technologies; and build talent and capacity. Nothing earth-shattering there that I can see.
So my question, 2 through 6.
What's your question?
2 through 6, I can get behind, and we can debate those. I have some points on at least one of those. But number 1, what is the point of number 1? How
read the details? It's pretty fucking scary.
How do we? I'm just reading the title. We need to shape adversary behavior. How do we influence the behavior of our adversaries? Am I reading
I
into
don't
this
quite
too
get
much,
what
or-
the title means with the content of what they say, but and it's only like a third of a page, the content of this thing. What's most interesting to me, I mean, they talk about fighting back basically, and we're unleashing the full capability of our military, but they also say we will unleash the private sector by creating incentives to identify and disrupt adversary networks and scale our national capabilities.
Okay.
That sounds
Are
like
they talking about hacking back? Are they talking about
That
hacking
sure
back?
sounds
That sounds
like
like hacking
hacking
back.
No such thing as hacking back. It is letters of marque and reprisal. And it's time for Bill to get his pirate outfit on.
Okay, I'm in.
That's what they're
All
actually
right.
doing. They're
But
talking
it's
about letters of
sanctioned,
marque
so
and
he's a
reprisal.
privateer, not a pirate. Come on.
Exactly. What they
I'm
said,
thinking when I go to the Halloween store in Halloween time and I see the sexy pirate outfit, that's Bill's pirate outfit.
Listen.
I don't know why. That was the first thing that came to
Listen,
my head.
I gotta tell you, man, I've been there and I've looked at her so many times.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
The
just
sexy
don't
pirate
think that
outfit
nurse's
is
costume's going to fit anymore,
legit.
Bill.
we're gonna
For you,
we're gonna
Bill.
walk away.
The focus of this group is just incredible.
The last
focus?
the last sentence of that pillar is actually what they mean about changing.
But
their behavior.
in the context of
Explain
hacking
it
back,
then, Josh.
that makes sense. Shape adversary behavior.
What they're saying is, let me read the last sentence because this is actually
Yeah,
the
that's
thing
it.
that matters.
Hit it.
We will work together to create real risk for adversaries who seek to harm us and impose consequences on those who do act against us. They're basically, they want to be a deterrent by, whether digitally, cyber, or whether in the real world, beating the crap out of anybody that tries to hack anybody in the US. And they want to push people to not do it, which of course is stupid.
I mean, that's not really shaping their behavior. That's imposing punishments on adversaries. That's not shaping their behavior. I'm not saying I disagree with it, but I mean, how many threat actors have we extradited here to the U.S. from enemy nations?
Not many.
I've seen us put them on lists. We filed charges against threat actors in other countries. But Jeff, to your point, it's rare if there's actual consequences to those.
But there are consequences. So I take maybe I'm taking the contrarian point here, but I think that this is not a bad first pillar, right? So now the why and or how actually the how.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with her saying it's bad,
right? But so if
right?
we were to take a look at it at name a nation, I'm not going to say any nation, but if we were to take a look at their strategy and their strategy were to attack us with cyber weapons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they were to publicly post that they're going to do this. Right. I think that it should be in our nation's strategy to shape that behavior. Look, you cannot publicly state that you're going to steal intellectual property, right? If you attack an American company, right, as a nation state, if you attack an American company, should America step in to help solve this case or whatever, right? So I think that and I don't remember exactly which president it was.
It's kind of soft language to say that we're going to drone strike where the hackers are.
That's right.
Right. It's kind of soft language for that. Right?
That's kind of where I was going. It's soft language saying,
which I believe we've done. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we've done that before.
We most certainly have. But I think that it's soft language to say physical or cyber attacks may result in physical. Right.
Okay. Well, okay. In that context, it makes sense, right? And it's a case by case basis whether or not I'm truly behind, the actions that are taken. But
But that's the how. It's the who and the what and the where and the when. And
for sure. I mean, if you've got intel, I was reading about actually just. I don't know what it is on Wednesdays. I get these TLP Amber reports, right before the show.
Maybe that's when they're regularly released.
I think there's when they're so CISA, JCDC, and I think this was last week before. The title just says report on Iranian affiliated actors targeting PLC devices. So look, if our adversaries are trying to disrupt our critical infrastructure, think about where PLC devices are used. Let's say power plants. And our response is a kinetic response where we drone strike the building where the attackers are operating out of. Those circumstances, I'm okay, that could be justified. Right? I'm not saying it's justified in every case, but that is a response, one response to that.
Well, I guess my point is right now, and let's pull away from the nation states and let's just take a look at maybe the ransomware groups. It is hunting season. They are getting away with anything that they want, right? They are targeting our companies. They are devastating. They're ripping our data. They're ripping our data. They're destroying. That we do need to change that behavior. There needs to be at least some consequence, or at least some deterrent from just open season on American companies.
I agree.
I'm not too bad about that.
All right, so you're okay
I still think shape adversary behavior should be go on the offensive to thwart cyber attacks, even if that means kinetic means. If that's what we're saying, that's what we're saying. But every
ransomware, one company, you get a bomb in the mail.
Yeah, right.
I think
I'm
you're,
not
I think you're
advocating for
jumping
that.
too
Like,
quickly to the kinetic response.
yes,
That may be implied,
Listen,
but
that may be fair. Yeah.
But
Well,
I think there's an implication in this pillar that our cyber capability is what's going to do most of the deterrence.
And I think that it's going to be coupled. Not, I mean, it's easy to go to a kinetic response on this one because it feels like I'm gonna punch you in the face kind of posture. But I think you're right, Jeff. It's a cyber response. It's also, but I'm also thinking of the stuff that Interpol does, where they get a whole bunch of nations together and they go after somebody and they freaking arrest them.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Not as much of that in the U.S., but overseas. I mean, one of my story number 7 is they took down like 94 people in this latest move, and there were 72 countries involved. I mean, that's freaking cool,
right?
Go do more of
that.
They're committing
what I
crimes.
actually
Go
would like to
arrest
see
them.
that tiller to mean is like
I'm more on
we're
board
coming
with that
after
than
your ass, and you're going to jail.
Yeah,
right?
I'm more on board with that than like bombing people or taking people's lives. Like go
arrest
the
them.
threat.
They broke the law.
Yeah. I want to talk about the number 3 though. No, number 4. Secure critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
It seems to me the administration is contradicting themselves. We've talked about the budgeting cuts and the cuts to CISA. The top of the show, I gave a firsthand account where CISA was hugely helpful, right? In helping.
And that's why I was asking before or after the shutdown.
Right. No.
So if the national cyber strategy for America says secure critical infrastructure, the logical question is, why have you cut funding to CISA? Literally, the name is Critical Infrastructure Security Agency. And again, I will back that up by saying there's great people working for CISA. They've been hugely helpful in communicating vulnerabilities, helping secure technology, helping secure our nation, upping the game, helping researchers, helping vendors, coordinating. Like let's fix some stuff, right? In helping in that effort. And that's just a small part of what CISA has done in the past and could continue to do at a grander scale, provided that they had the funding. The known exploited vulnerabilities list is fantastic. Now we can debate how much you work off of exploits to defend, your infrastructure organization, and I do want to talk about that before we close today. But like, it just seems to me like the administration is contradicting themselves when they say secure critical infrastructure, but by the way, the agency that we have, whose mission it is to provide security for critical infrastructure, we're going to cut your funding.
Cut
That's
it.
bullshit.
They gutted it. Jesus.
Yeah.
They gutted it. And my pet peeve is pillar number 2. So, I think if we go through all 6 of them, and we don't have to do that tonight, but I think we should go through all 6 of them.
At some point in
time, yes.
Number 2
let's do number 2 and then move on. Yeah.
Promote common sense regulation. Cyber defense should not be reduced to a costly checklist that delays preparedness, action, and response. We will streamline cyber regulations to reduce compliance burdens, address liability, and better align regulators and industry globally. And they're intending to do this for the private sector. Josh, how many years have you put into CMMC?
But how does reducing the burden
6
for
now?
compliance
5 or 6.
help the national cyber strategy?
Well, that's kind of my question. I mean,
Right?
my experience, companies are hard pressed to meet these regulatory compliance standards. I mean, CMMC has how many levels? 6, 7?
No, 3 now. Only 3.
Oh, it's down to 3. It used to be 6 or
Used to
7.
be 5.
5. Fair enough. And you get credit for advancing from level 1 to level 2. It doesn't mean you're secure, but you're
level
showing
1 to
signs
level
of
2 is a
improvement.
pretty big jump too.
But to me,
talk
now,
about counterintuitive.
Yeah, but to me, common sense regulation means tightening the requirements and mandating things in certain compliance aspects. Josh, you and I have had.
I want to hear what Josh
had
thinks about this one.
Right? You and I have had this. We had this conversation yesterday, the day before, on a meeting we were on,
Absolutely.
and I was like,
absolutely.
Case in point, like go back to our KVM research. We need vendors to protect their products. One way they can do that is cryptographic firmware validation. But right now, I don't know of any compliance frameworks that are mandating that vendors do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
How
so
many
if we want
organizations do you know that are going to do anything unless they have to?
unless they're mandated to,
Period.
right? So I mean, the title doesn't say, promote no regulation or a lot of regulation. It says common sense. I want to deem common sense as when the private sector puts products on the market, they should have to adhere to a common set of security standards. We've talked about this ad nauseum on the show, but the current administration seems to be of the opinion, well, private companies should be able to do like whatever they want. And that greatly contradicts what I would deem as common sense regulation. I think there's a lot of areas, not just in security, but certainly in privacy, right, where regulation could help move the bar. I don't know if you've listened to Cory Doctorow has done 2 different podcast episodes to promote his book, which is titled Enshittification. I forget the full title, but I don't know if you've heard it. But Cory is one of the smartest people I think I've ever listened to speak.
For
He's
sure.
an amazing human being. And what he says just makes so much sense, right?
Yeah.
And when he talks recently about enshittification, I'm like, dude, like you're saying what's on our minds and articulating that in such a way that it really made me realize how much leeway we've given private companies here in the US. And the end result is a detriment to privacy and security in our nation. So define what common sense.
So I still want to
go
hear
listen
what
to
Josh
Cory what
thinks.
common sense means.
So
Josh.
let's be clear. I'm not going to try to take up 50 minutes because I could, but their concept of common sense is this is the only thing they've put out about this 4 or 5 page CSRMC, which is the Cybersecurity Risk Management Construct, which is supposed to be the replacement for the RMF, the Risk Management Framework. The RMF is a half a dozen NIST standards, each one of which, like basically the entire RMF is, you could use it as a friggin' pillow. It's this much paper, okay? The CSRMC is 4 pages plus 2 infographics, all right? And there's nothing else coming out about that as far as I know, okay? The Swift stuff, like, look, simplifying it, I am all on board with it. Automating, their concepts are make everything automated. Look, I use AI every day. Automation is more valuable now than it's ever been in my entire existence. I'm good with that. Simplify, love it, because who wants to read a pillow? Let's be clear, okay?
Right.
But do it in a sensible fashion that gives people standard guidelines to follow, not a checklist. But here's what I'm measuring you against. Here is what you need to understand. Here's how you need to do things, or at least an idea of how to do things. A concept of a plan, somebody said. So the real problem here is that simplification for me is to take these textbooks and do the Cliff Notes. Simplification for some people seems to be throw it all away. And that's why CMMC, for example, which, it's hefty, has everybody confused because nobody knows what this new FedRAMP 20X, CSRMC, the cyber strategy, we just don't understand what they mean. And so nobody's spending the money to make compliant things happen.
Nobody's jumping in and doing the CMMC because it might go away or it might transform or evolve.
Sincerely that
the enforcement thing of CMMC has been the difficulty.
So, I mean, I was thinking about 2 things as I was reading this. One was, that how many times have we heard somebody say compliance is not security? And in that case, you're going to be a throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? I mean, because
exactly.
that's the burn it all down, which is the wrong approach. I mean, compliance in many cases is your minimum. I realize if we got Jeff in the room and we look at PCI, that's not a fair generalization. So understand, I'm not trying to paint you with the same brush. But there's a lot of that going around. No. And then I apologize for doing it because I said PCI is not that.
CIS top 18 and 853. Yeah. Here's CIS top 18. Here's 853. You can simplify it and still make it very, very usable. You're absolutely correct, man.
And well, then let Lee make his point.
Sorry, and I've also seen policy that says do these things, these key things, and then follow the rest of NIST. So yeah, okay. But the other thing that I thought was actually really kind of neat at the very end of the paragraph, it says, we'll emphasize the right to policy for Americans. It's to me saying, oh, somebody gets that we need to not have 50 privacy acts in the United States. I mean, I've been saying we really need to have a national privacy act that's current and valid, and because otherwise the states are
we almost had one too, except that was in 2001.
Oh.
And you know what we got instead because of September 11th, which horrible tragedy. I'm not downplaying it anyway, but you know what we got instead? Because it just the way the timing lined up, we got the Patriot Act instead of privacy laws. We could have led the way in privacy laws, similar to the way EU has CRA and GDPR and the whole thing, but instead, I mean, the country was flipped on its head. And I'm not saying, downplaying anything, but that's just what happened, right? Which is
and we got to go
unfortunate
fix that.
in many different aspects. Unfortunate, right? And it's interesting too. We interviewed Cory Doctorow on the show years ago, and at that time, I was very much anti-regulation. Everything regulation is bad, and Cory is the one that articulated very well. Like, Paul, you're wrong. I concede. And because Cory was
Paul, you ignorant slut.
Yes. I mean, paraphrasing, that's kind of what Cory said, right? But Cory is super smart to back that up. Yes. And he was like, dude, regulation can be awesome. It can help alleviate a lot of these
and for the
problems
millennials out there, I'm quoting a Saturday Night Live skit from the 70s.
Yes,
genre. Jane Curtin
Those
and Dan
folks.
Aykroyd, where they used to do on the news segment point counterpoint, and Jane Curtin would have very articulate reasonings and arguments, and Dan Aykroyd would come in and say, "Jane, you ignorant slut."
But
context is everything.
And what Cory still does to this day is paint common sense regulation, which is why I love the number 2 on this list, right? As it's not always a bad thing. That common sense regulation can advance privacy, security, consumer protection in our nation, and not always a detriment. Bad regulation leads to bad results. But
Paul, I could get behind it if there was actual regulation. I mean, the NIST cybersecurity framework is not regulation.
No, that's yes.
The
That's
NIST
optional.
special
Policy
publication
versus,
series, largely
their guidance,
is not regulation.
Yeah.
What regulation is there for any government agency, number one, or any organization that wants to do business with a government agency? What regulation is there? Anybody, tell me.
So it's an interesting point. For example, you want to get your cloud service FedRAMP certified, you have to meet 853, or they will not certify it.
Well, there's a story in there somewhere about Microsoft.
Well, hang on.
Yeah, because like big companies can do whatever they want. Basically, it's kind of the gist of the story now, right?
And there is a regulation that says if you're using cloud services with certain classes of government data, you must have a FedRAMP certified cloud service.
So FedRAMP is regulation?
Yeah, that's a regulation. You're required. It's the data protection part of the regulations.
Yes.
We can talk about whether FedRAMP has got flaws or not. That's not the point. I was trying to get to a regulatory point that built on what you were saying.
So maybe the lack of common sense aspect is that FedRAMP, and I don't do FedRAMP. So Josh, enlighten me.
Count your blessings.
The FedRAMP, it sounds like, just points to NIST, which is guidance.
Right.
It points to a subset of NIST, yes, but if
you don't implement the NIST controls, you're not going to pass. You're not going to get your FedRAMP certification. So it might be guidance, but this is how we're doing it.
Whether the controls are applicable or not makes sense or not.
Well,
is that the problem?
You can tailor
that's where
them.
you get tailoring.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You can tailor them. As a matter of fact, there's NIST 853 has low mod high.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Under FedRAMP, you can also do LI SaaS, which is low impact SaaS. It's a tailored low. It has almost nothing in it.
Yeah. It's like 882 low. It's like,
it's ridiculous.
Well, but it makes sense in some cases.
Yeah, it totally does. It's a valid one. At least it has more subtlety, more gradations than 3 levels of CMMC.
Yeah.
I mean, the pillar had to come from somewhere. I
Yeah.
mean, I know they didn't write this based on PCI. I don't know if there was any reference to ISO or any of those other industry certifications, but I'm guessing this has something to do with. But to me, it seemed like a slap in the face to CMMC at first blush. But
Josh, you're on mute.
If he was talking to us.
I want to wait till Bill comes back before I go to my story number 16, which kind of relates to what we're talking about,
So-
right?
Yeah, is that the Microsoft
my
story?
filler before we get there is Cory Doctorow did an interview on the Jordan Harbinger show. Fantastic episode. Kind of talks about the same stuff we're talking about, not directly in necessarily a cybersecurity context, but more in the relationship between privacy and the regulation or deregulation in certain environments. And it's amazing. He talked about like how Amazon works, which is just, once you listen to it, you don't want to buy anything on Amazon anymore.
I already don't.
It's
I
I think we've all noticed this, right? That if you go search for something on Amazon, what comes up in your first few results, you see that little sponsored thing and you see your first results, it's not the best product. It's what makes Amazon the most money. And we've given private companies this kind of leeway to put profit first and put privacy and consumers second. And I think we're seeing the same things in cybersecurity
this particular
too.
Company, Amazon, is one of the largest in terms of GDP. I think that's what we call it these days.
Yeah.
I mean, they're nation state size, and they're a company,
right?
In terms of their influence, and that's freaky in and of itself.
But we look at the lack of we talk about lack of regulation in cybersecurity, and I think it directly translates to lack of regulation in commerce. And the one thing that was really interesting, like Amazon Basics, right, was the brand that Amazon created. One of the ways that they were able to create that is that when you're an Amazon seller, you have to disclose your supply chain. So you're like, hey, I want to bring this product to Amazon. And you're like, I want to warehouse it here. I'm manufacturing it here. And here are all the suppliers that I'm dealing with. Well, Amazon has access to that data.
And then
what Amazon did was like, wait, I can go to those same suppliers. I can buy in larger bulk and I can reduce our costs.
Well,
and
they watch for popular. They watch for
get a better deal
projects.
because I'm a bigger company.
Yep. And Bill, go ahead. I know where you're going, right? They watch for the popular stuff.
Yep. That's where
and they just knock it off.
So Lee dropped into the chat. Amazon is the 14th largest country in the world.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Based on its GDP.
Right.
Yeah, 1.6 trillion. Crazy.
And don't get me started on the billion. I don't know if you ever seen this skit on social media where it's about taxes, right? And you're like, well, billionaires don't get taxed because they're not really making income. It's based on their stock. And that's not really money. That's just value in a company. So therefore we can't tax it. But wait, look at how Elon bought Twitter. It still like blows my mind. Elon bought Twitter because he's like, wait, I don't have the money, but I got enough stock, but I'm not getting taxed on it. Therefore it's not income. But yet I can use that stock and that value to go buy Twitter. And then I can go tell investors, I want to borrow money based on the value of my stock that I'm not taxed on. And investors are like, we'll give you money based on the value of the stock, but I don't have to pay taxes on that. And with that money, Elon can go buy Twitter. Like that's just, but I'm like, wait, I thought it wasn't money that it could be taxed on, but yet I can use that money to go buy a company.
And then even better, when the stock goes up in value, you borrow again, pay off the previous.
You can borrow again, right?
Keep on going.
But you're not taxed on it.
So that begs the question.
Not until you cash it out.
As much as Amazon is valued, do they actually turn a profit? Because I know for years Amazon wasn't
They
turning a
didn't, yeah.
profit.
Yes, they do. They operate in the black.
They do now,
They
yeah.
do
I
operate.
think
in
they
the
do.
black.
I
Okay.
want to go to my story number 16.
Let's
go
move
ahead.
on. Go ahead, Paul.
To sort of relate. So I don't know if anyone's seen the Cisco SD-WAN vulnerabilities, right? Ton of vulnerabilities, Cisco SD-WAN products. I think one of the realizations I had is when there was, in this article talks about it, is the Australian CERT or whatever published a huge report on how you do forensics on these devices. And if you read that report, many of us in technology look at that and go, these are just Linux devices. Well, that's kind of interesting. And so the vulnerabilities and exploits surrounding this Cisco SD-WAN is a complicated web, and it's messy. And I'm like, what does this mean for defenders, right? And what Vulncheck is talking about in this article is there was a whole bunch of CVEs issued. Some had public exploits, some didn't. Some were exploited in the wild. Some Cisco got wrong that it was exploited in the wild. There was a proof of concept. All that aside, though, do we care if an exploit exists or not? So, for Cisco, I think we don't often see a public exploit because that's high value. Cisco products are some of the most used products in technology today. So when someone finds a vulnerability, develops an exploit, are they going to share that? That's a high value exploit. Therefore, maybe they're not publishing it publicly, but they're selling it in exploit markets, or they're using it for themselves because it's such a widely used product. They're going to use that to profit more so than they would being able to maybe sell that exploit, or if they make it public, then it decreases the value, right?
That's a blog post you should write. That's a very clever and smart, look at that.
Dude, and it was AI that led me down this path. It didn't have all the definitive data, but it presented the idea from other sources of data, because I was like, look, I'm like, when I look at, and I'm not picking any vendor, but I'm like, when I look at Fortinet, there's some public proof of concepts out there for Fortinet, for Avanti, and some other vendors. But I'm like, you know what? Cisco has all these other vulnerabilities. And I actually told him, look at all these CVEs, but there's no public proof of concepts for these. I'm like, why is that? That's weird. And so what AI was telling me was exactly what I described. They're like, well, it's a high value target. I'm like, well, that's super interesting. And I think what it comes down to is where Vulncheck is going, right? And I love Vulncheck. Patrick Garrity's great company. I love what they're doing. And, they're talking about, well, you should prioritize what is being exploited in the wild. I don't necessarily disagree with that. But also at the end of the day, what do you value? What do you give stake to? Is there a public exploit? Is there not? Is there a proof of concept? Does it work? Does it not? Throw all that out. Let's pretend, just throw all that out the window. Let's say there's a vulnerability in Cisco products. Do I care as a defender whether there's a public exploit and what efficacy that exploit has? The real problem is, for me as a defender, one, am I using that product? Two, is that product in use the specific version that's vulnerable? Three, is there a patch and have I applied it or not? I don't really care about exploits and whether they work or not. The catch-up that I'm playing is, do I have that product and am I remediating it?
So
because
unfortunately, I think that you still, yes, I think the public exploit matters, right? And I say unfortunately, so say you've got product A that has a vulnerability, and you have a product B that has a vulnerability. You can only patch one. Product A has it's posted on GitHub, right? You can only fix one. Which one are you fixing? Right. So now, of course, what's the risk to the business, all that kind of stuff. But it does matter, right?
Right. But do threat actors have those exploits regardless? Regardless of whether it's public or not? If
it's public, you know that they do. If it's private, you don't know that they do.
I'm saying I think they do. Whether, you know what I mean? I think they're trading those, they're selling those, they're developing those, and they have them. Because if you look at the difficulty of creating exploits for these things, a lot of times there's not much difference, right? And so it really just comes down to patching. So we're kind of splitting here. All right, one has a public exploit, maybe one doesn't, but it's a really high value target. So threat actors probably have that, and therefore they're going to come after. And the example I give is Amazon just published research. They're like, I believe it was the SD-WAN one. They're like, by the way, this vulnerability, we have evidence that it was being exploited before Cisco published the advisory. And I think we're at a time.
We saw that on that. We saw that on the Cisco SD-WAN. Yeah.
And we're like,
I think
we're
Cisco
at a time,
said that too.
We've got negative days from when an advisory is released to when it's exploited.
So what about the whole threat that once they've published a patch, somebody's going to reverse it to get the attack?
It's like
that's
hours,
not a threat
right?
By definition.
I talked about that last week, Lee. I don't know if you're on the show last week, right? But what was the 0 day something website where they're tracking from time a patch is released to when an exploit is released. Some people are calling that like 1.6 days, but some people are calling it like 1.6 days from the time they can reverse engineer a patch to get an exploit. And many of these vulnerabilities that I'm tracking, especially against network devices, it's negative days. They're already exploiting it before the patch is released. I'm like, so your vulnerability management program that's like, oh, a patch is released and I'm going to go scan my network. I'm going to find all the vulnerabilities. Then I'm going to file some tickets. Then I'm going to have a patch window of 30 days. Like, blow that out of the water. You're already screwed. You're already screwed. Whatever
so we're releasing the video while we're still making the movie?
Yeah. Whatever you have in your environment today, patching is not enough. I guess that's what. So the point of
But Paul, you're the one that says that patch everything, and now you're saying patching is not enough.
Yes, that's the evolution that we're in now. Yes.
Oh, I don't think that's an evolution, Paul. I think that's been the case for many years. But I'm glad you're coming around.
When we get to network devices, here's the thing that I want us to debate in the negative time that we have, ironically, in this episode.
Got 45 seconds.
We need to monitor our devices the same way we monitor Windows systems. We need EDR for our devices because they're already being attacked before a patch comes out. And what's happening now is that vendors are not opening that iron curtain to protect their crappy Linux distro that's underneath every single one of your expensive enterprise appliances.
And think about after it as well. Don't think about patching for a minute. Think about after. Because remember, with EU Red and all the different stuff coming, and the CRA, you've got 24 hours to report. So effectively, you not only have to fix your patching, you have to fix your incident response. You have to have professional incident response either on staff or do it as a service. And nobody does that. I happen to know a company that will be doing it, but I don't know if I can name it here. It's Finite State. And
have you gotten an offer letter yet?
But the elephant, to me, the elephant in the room, and I'll promote Finite State as well as Eclipsium in one fell swoop, right? The elephant in the room is enterprise appliances implement crappy Linux distributions underneath the covers that they don't want you to access, that attackers have access to, that we can't monitor, that we can't put EDR on. And so attackers are like, yeah, I've got 0 days.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Yeah. It really grinds my gears that's the state that we're in, that you buy these appliances trying to shift the security responsibility to vendors. They want no part of that responsibility because they don't give the customers nor the cybersecurity companies that want to help protect you, like ourselves, Josh, the access needed to monitor and defend that environment. They're just like, you need to trust us. Meanwhile, attackers are like, oh, I've got the next remote code execution vulnerability. It's a 0 day, and now I'm in your infrastructure. And by the way, I've got full demos that are based on real-world threat actors that use that vulnerability to pivot inside your internal network, collect credentials, and ransomware and info stealer your environment 6 ways to Sunday. And to me, that's the elephant in the room. It has to be addressed. And it ties back to regulation. Why don't we have regulation that's enforcing these vendors to produce better code, to produce S-bombs, to adhere to standards?
You're talking about a whole classification of regulation that does not exist.
Correct.
There is no regulation for the production of software, hardware, firmware, anything.
But these are the droids we're looking for.
Executive Order 14028. but there's no
But
regulation.
to summarize what you're describing, Paul, the way I've resolved myself to this problem after 40 some odd years is it's the difference between securing all the things, which is what most of our industry focuses on, and security, which is the monitoring and the due diligence and looking at what's going on and responding and reacting to it. And that's how I'm separating the two conversations. So there is no regulation for securing, but we like to talk about, we need that.
Yeah.
That's not even one of the 6 pillars.
Yeah.
Right.
If you stop
and
and
it
think
should
about
be. It should be. It should be secure before it gets adopted and implemented.
Well, that's where,
and that's the problem that we have today.
secure by design is a whole. Was it a NIST thing that was going?
God,
for that?
I wish we had another hour because we could.
Yeah, we do.
We hit on a thing, right? We hit on a thing that we could talk
maybe
about
instead of doing the news and not next week because it's RSAC conference, but maybe we need to have a segment where we dive into this very issue.
Yeah. This is to me one of the most important topics.
Let's do it.
Yes, an hour and a half rant. Deep dive.
Ooh, can we get Bruce?
Well,
Potter?
gentlemen, thank you very much for participating in this episode of Paul Security Weekly. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. Next week will be a pre-recorded episode. I don't remember what we pre-recorded, a technical segment or something. But whatever it is going to be awesome.
I want to say it, Paul.
Supposed to be. What's that?
I want to say it.
Say what?
He wants to
take us out.
Oh, and Bill, take us out.
Over and out.
Woo!
Oh, I
Nicely
did
done,
it.
sir.